Hello.
Yeah.
So it's been a while
Yeah.
since we've done these videos, and I wanted to ask because quite often you've redirected the anger that you feel towards yourself, and one of the ways that you redirect it is by punishing yourself through your eating and things like that. Um, and you'd kind of been learning about your anger. Do you want to
Mm.
tell me about that and what your experience of that is?
Yeah, it's only recently where I think I've understood it more than I ever had done. Even from childhood, it confused me, did my anger, that I had anger there at certain things, which I didn't know why I was angry at certain things when there was no logic. And so I just felt that there was something wrong with me. And it's only, in recent years, to be fair, through therapy that I've been able to reflect on the past, but also look at how I'm dealing with things in the future. And I guess I'm learning to recognize all the learning opportunities that are around there for me and my self-development. So when I come across things or I notice things, I think more about them. The recent thing that's on my mind and got me thinking about my own anger is I went to a meeting which I always try and avoid. To say I talk about my experiences, I always try and avoid to be around people who have had similar experiences talking about it, because it reminds me that I can't minimize it if somebody else is talking about their stuff and it's, quite harrowing and very real. I can't minimize it in my head because that's not fair or appropriate. So I can't minimize my stuff, if that makes sense. So I tend to avoid those environments. But recently,
Sorry, I just want to ask you, when you say that you can't minimize it, is that because you had no option but to minimize it because your environment wasn't, safe enough for you to be able to say as what was happening and as it was going through?
yeah, I minimised my experience and I just used to tell myself growing up and even as an adult, because I actually worked in children's services. So I was like, I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill. My you know, what happened to me when I was little was just something that happened, and blamed myself for all my difficulties because that's what everybody around me did. They just saw the surface, my behaviour changes and my anger and awkwardness and wanting things my own way.
How did you deal with that with others then that had been through similar situations with the job that you were in?
I didn't, I completely separated and minimised my own experiences, diluted it and buried it really. And I was able to work very therapeutically and very empathetically and compassionately with young people who had been abused or who had been through difficult um, experiences in childhood. And I was able to form some really good relationships with those young people and take their difficulties seriously, um, while all the time being able to minimise mine.
So you didn't have the same empathy for yourself?
No, I just classed my experiences or put it out of my head. It's something that what happened when I was little, and did my best to ensure that I was, maybe not intentionally, but I'm just thinking, were I doing my best to be not like the people who were around me when I were a child?
I guess in a way where the saying comes from, the wounded healer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some of your, that you healed, wanted to heal others, but not being able to look at yourself and your own pain. So you tried. It was easier to do it at a distance with
Yeah.
somebody else's pain. Is that what?
Yeah, and I felt that I understood. Like I thought that I could get some understanding of what those young people might be experiencing, even though they were very different experiences to mine. And I knew how bad I felt living a life, and I didn't want somebody else to have to go through that, or I wanted to offer a different relationship with somebody.
I guess as well, even for your life, and as you started off the introduction here, you said the things that I have to face in the future, which is something that you won't really want to get out of bed for to do. The fact that you feel the future is something that you have to face, meaning what are you going to be facing? It's not something really to look forward to. That your experience of being on this planet is having to face things all the time. So you can understand why you don't want to be here, but is it that way, knowing that, you don't have to face things.
Yeah.
You're following the narrative when you were born, that you were taught you have to face things, that you taught you must, you should, you have to, you got to, as I said before. Then you're learning from people who learned something wrong. So then, the question is then, do you still keep following them? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, from your experiences, there's like a paradox for many of us, really, in the part of your anger, as we spoke about before, was people with made up costumes on, because we all have we make the world up, don't we? So we're not the very nice thing on the planet. In fact, I think we're probably one of the worst from our behaviour, compared to nature. And so we make things up. And so you've realised that you've made things up, like fear stories and things, because you've been able to change them. Therefore, they couldn't have been real in the first place. But they were real to you because your story of making them up was massive. It felt really real. You really got into that role because of your experiences. So when we then, you're born on this planet like everybody else, no different really. So then, if you learned something wrong from the ancestors who taught and learned something wrong, then how do you know who's right? From your experiences of all the people in their costumes, such as that you directed your anger with, is because the costumes or the labels that we have are labels of trust, the labels of caring. So for you, it's like, you get angry with the police or angry with the NHS and staff, or angry because they have a made-up costume on with a label, and then we're taught to trust. Then the other side of it, the paradox is that even though we're taught to trust that, we don't see the bigger picture that if you're the wounded healer with a label working as a carer somewhere, then who are the other people? When you really think, there must be only me that's ill then.
Yeah.
And everybody else, because they've got this label, this made up professional label, including myself, you've got a label. They must be all okay. They're not. Because it just seems. So how do you get your head around that paradox that I say quite often we have Stockholm syndrome. So we go back every single time to trust the people that have let us down the time before, because we're not realizing that those people too have had an upbringing. Those too go to work and might be a wounded healer or might be an abuser, one or the other. And so whatever made up costume you've got on, you're going to take that wherever you go with you. You can't leave your subconscious program at the door unless you work on the subconscious program itself. So how do you figure that out?
I think over the years, I haven't figured it out, and I've figured it out in different ways to make it manage. Originally, like you said, there was that dread of every day. I'd want every day to go really, really quickly, but then I didn't want the night time to come because it meant I went to sleep and there were another day going to come.
Yes.
So I lived for a very, very long time in that nothing else mattered. It was just, how can I get through the day? I want the day to go as quick as possible. I want it to end, but I don't want it to end because it means that another one's going to start.
So is that part of what you're predicting for the future then, getting through how am I
It
going to deal
was.
with?
It
So,
was
okay,
a very, very long time.
so looking at it now, do you have to deal with life? Or is it just like, it kind of, it comes off our tongue, doesn't it? When we have another thing, I realise I've got a choice.
Yeah,
Do you realise you've got a choice?
I've got a choice and I've got a responsibility that I'm learning now, and it is not something. It's something that I'm continually learning and something that I need to be reminded of, because it's easy to slip back in that. It's me. I had an incident yesterday, and it was going back to, it's me. I just want to hide. I just want, the world's horrible and da 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 da. And then I just thought, well, no, it's not. I started looking at people about where they were coming from. This person that had upset me, where were they coming from? But also, rather than just putting it out on them and going, it's their fault, they've done something to upset me, look at me. Why did it upset me? What was it? What's it made me think about? And that exploration, even a long time into therapy, was like, no, don't go there. I just know these things. Life's horrible. I'm horrible. And that's it.
I guess as well that when we're in our omnipotence and feel that we're the centre of the universe, then the narcissist comes out, and then you see the narcissist who blames everyone and says, I'd be all right if they stopped doing that.
Yeah.
And or they blame everybody. They blame the children, the pets, everybody. But it's never their fault because it's difficult to look at yourself. And the majority of people don't like to look at themselves. They like to, because we're taught to look outwards instead of looking inwards, which is odd, really. If you know all your feelings and everything's inside of you, why would you look inside? It's like looking outside for your car keys when they're in the house. So it's that. But when you mentioned anger as well, and the anger towards yourself, was it that turning it in on yourself, even though you didn't express it, although you have been you've been angry with the people with the costumes on, and you had an experience of that as well.
Yeah.
How do you manage those experiences if you have to deal with that again? Because if like you said, looking at the future, what you're saying is dealing with that. So, but the things that you've been dealing with is all of what we're talking about right now. So how do you deal with people with labels and made up costumes? Like the police and doctors and nurses and the other people in authority that you.
I think.
Well, that's the wrong word. Authority. I guess that's made up as well. We just go over it. That really must should have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over time, I've dealt with it differently, and I can see that developmenting. Originally, like from when I was little, I just thought it was me, that I've done something wrong. These people, because I was brought up to respect authority, to the doctors were gods. You'd get dressed up going to the doctors when you were little and stuff like that. And if you had a home visit, your mum would be cleaning everywhere and making sure it was all right, because doctors come in and stuff, and that kind of thing. So for a very long time, even into adulthood, I always thought it was something wrong with me, and that added to the compliance. A doctor said do something, I said, all right, then I'll do it, because I thought that they knew best. And it's only now that I feel, and it's interesting, and I've noticed this with other people who have had experience of childhood abuse, lots of different experiences, that a lot of people, yes, show anger towards the person who raped them, abused them, did whatever they did to them. But there's a lot of people who are very similar to me, that their anger isn't directed at that person because that person was open and honest about what they were doing. I'm more angry at those people who hurt and abused me or used me or upset me or didn't help me, who were in a position who said they were going to do.
Well, I think it's that, actually, it's the total lie, the dishonesty, the fact that we're literally brainwashed to trust people. And we're brainwashed to trust people, like you said, the doctors were made like dogs. So these are special people and they know better. How can somebody else know better about how you feel when they can't feel it? So it's asking those questions. How can they know how you feel? You know, like quite often, I know you said before, or when you go to doctor, you it doesn't hurt that bad. How do you know if you're not feeling what's inside this body? So it's that, but I get what you're saying is that the perpetrator has got on the stage, and like Shakespeare said, we're on the stage, aren't we? The perpetrator has got on the stage, so to speak, in the serious of sense. I'm not meaning to lighten this in any way, but a perpetrator is the perpetrator. So, but in a way, they fooled you as well, because they would have been nice to get you to the position that they did, the grooming and things like that. But the perpetrator, you know, this person's a perpetrator, and then they're left with that label then. So everybody's kind of aware that this is eventually, but when they're aware this is the perpetrator, I know to avoid this person. But I can see the problem where you're coming from is that if somebody's got a label and it can feel the same guy. It's like you've gone into the Hansel and Gretel house of Sweetie, and then you've met these nasty witch, haven't you? So that ultimately is what how it looks anyway as an image, a metaphor that you're going towards people with labels that they're supposed to be kind, they speak about care and everything else, and then you don't get cared for. You get abused, quite often verbally, with some things that are said. Physically, because they're hurting your body still goes through pains, through some certain things as well. So it's that lie. But this person over here, then once you know that person is that, you're not going to go near them again. But these people over here, we have to have Stockholm because we have to go, or we don't have to go, but there's not where else are we going to go back to them to try and believe and have faith again that they're not going to let us down or they're going to do something, when actually they often can treat you barbarically. But I think it's the looking at the bigger picture as well. So, like, let's give an example now. The royal family. Now, the royal family have, they've done some barbaric things for many, many years. I mean, slavery was barbaric, and yet people forget, and they just don't want this fairy tale because we're brought up with these fairy tales. The princess syndrome. That's why women just want the fairy tale when they get older, because they're still in the child self of wanting the princess dresses, and so it becomes about the same thing. You see what I mean? So it's that way. It's just made up stories of we have kings and queens in fairy tales, so now we believe them when we're older. But when you look behind, you think we don't want to look at the bad side, and so you just dismiss it. You just want to. It's willful ignorance towards that. But I guess now it's massive. So, but ultimately, it always was, as long as it didn't bother that person particularly. But it always was, and we're always directed to, oh well, it doesn't matter because look at them, they're worse. Oh, look at them, they're worse. Do you see what I mean? What I mean by that is the example that I'm meaning is that, for instance, before I'm going to say slavery. Before slavery, people of say Caucasians were all fighting the Caucasians. Just wanted someone to fight. That's why I said we're one of the worst species on the planet, really, in a certain sense. And then some, the king, I think it was of France or somebody, said he had a message from God in the dream of Nod, and wrote that book out. So he wrote a book, and then everybody believed it because now you could separate and say, oh, it's their fault. They're a different colour, so it's their fault. So we started getting separated then, all of us. Women get separated from men, and children get separated, and boys and girls, and we're all getting separated because it's divide and conquer. And so then you can see that, can't you, in terms of you're brought up to believe these things, and we don't want to look at that. We don't want to look in the shadow. We don't want to pull the blanket back. We want to keep this fairy tale all the time. But then what do you do when you become angry as you are? in a similar way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because at first I wasn't angry. At first I accepted how I was treated because I thought that was what helping was, or that is
what was,
or that was how I was deserved to be treated.
right? So that added to your feelings of not worthiness, that
Yeah,
you
the way that I
deserve
was
that.
spoke to.
Yeah.
And like, I know it's stuck in my head. I often repeat it, where one nurse said to me, "I pity your parents for having a daughter like you. You make me sick looking at you." One of the consultants I had regularly swore at me.
And it's that they're looking at a vulnerable person. At that time, you weighed 4 stone.
Yeah.
So they're looking at this vulnerable person that's, in trouble with
In hospital.
In hospital, yeah. So, so you're kind of at your lowest. And they're speaking to you because you're disturbing their ego, what's going on for them from where they grew up. So, but it has to be something similar.
And I just accepted it. I just went, yeah, so do I. I pity my parents because that's how low my self-worth and my self-esteem was. Now, I think that's why it's stuck in my head. I'm really angry that it was acceptable and still is. When I went to A&E last summer, as soon as they found out I had a mental health issue, they went, "There's nothing wrong with you, discharge you. Get out, get yourself ready and get out." I was sent out of the hospital in my pajamas with no coat, no money, no nothing, on my own.
Wow.
Still feeling the same as what I was when I went in, but they said, "Oh, we're not doing any more tests on you because it'll be to do with your mental health." And it was actually written in my notes, which thankfully my psychiatrist saw and actually rectified and told the relevant people, said, "This Deborah does not make these things up," because she knew me very well and she knew ins and outs of it.
So
But
that's that.
Now I'm angry about those things.
Yeah, because that in itself is saying, because somebody's got a mental health issue, majority of people have got a mental health issue. It's been known for centuries that the insane don't know they're insane, but now it's called mental health issue. So, but we've normalised the abnormal. Do you see what I mean? You have a species, say you have two, the same cells in a Petri dish, and you can put one in that environment and one in that environment. One will grow hair, the other one will grow teeth. They're both the same cells. So you're a healthy cell when you're born. If you're a healthy cell and the majority of us sick, that's got to be an unhealthy environment. So how do people get to choose which is unhealthy? Number one. But number two, when is it that somebody chooses that if you've got a mental health issue, you're automatically a liar?
Yeah, I've had that many times. I've had lots of assumptions. Another service that I was referred to, the chronic fatigue service. Yes, we'll take you on, and yes, you've got chronic fatigue and this, that, and other. Then I got a phone call saying, "We've reviewed in a multidisciplinary team meeting because of your mental health issues. You won't work with us." And it was just assumed because I've got a label borderline personality disorder is that I'm challenging and won't cooperate. And I'm like, "But I am the most compliant person ever." And it was like, "Yeah, but not in the criteria of your diagnosis. We just think you're not going to work with us."
You've got to ask yourself the question then, which one is mentally ill?
Yeah.
It's because you don't fit in a box. Well, is that box correct then? Who decides that box is correct? Because what you're saying is, because you're ill, you don't fit into our criteria, so we can't help you. Then who's the one that needs help? If you can't
I've had
help
that before.
people,
A nurse said to me, "Oh, I can't put that. I ain't got a drop down box for it.
Yeah.
I don't fit in, so I get discharged." So many services I've been discharged from because I don't fit their criteria.
Which one's the problem?
And do you know, I put something on LinkedIn last night very similar. Reaching out should come with a caveat, because they're always telling reach out, but what they don't say is reach out, but only in a socially acceptable way, in a way that don't make us feel comfortable about an issue that can be easily solved, medicated, or solved in a couple of sessions. Otherwise, they don't want to know.
I guess then it comes back to where it started from, when I've mentioned before about the medical model is to make money.
Yeah.
You know, as John Rockefeller devised the medical model, it wasn't to get people well, because it wouldn't make sense. When you get people well, you're going to put yourself out of business.
Mm.
You see what I mean? So, do you think it's part of your anger, in realizing the anger, but realizing why is to say, you know, there might be something wrong with me because of the environment that I'm in, but is there also something wrong with other people as well, because they're in the same environment?
Yeah, and I think
And having that understanding, although the way that we speak, it's not really to, you know, be derogatory towards anyone, but ultimately just to be truthful about, you know, the way that you've been treated, your personal situation, but also to understand that if somebody's angry, you know, that when, like I say, when somebody says, "Oh, those children are getting on my nerves," it's like, no, they're not. Your thoughts are getting on your nerves. Your ego thoughts are getting on your nerves, because that's what's telling you in your own head. So you need to go in there and have a look. Yeah. So if that's the same, then can you see it that even the people with labels and costumes have an ego, where if somebody's being verbally abusive or whatever they're being, is because of what they've experienced when they've grown up,
yeah, that
and
is
they've brought
helping.
that to work with them.
Yeah.
So then it gives a level of understanding to say, although it should be addressed, it's, you know, because then you can see that what people are doing is not looking at themselves to say, well, what's wrong with me, if I'm always saying what's wrong with you? Because then you come back to the narcissist of, I'm not the problem, it's the rest of the world that's the problem. And you say, well, no, we're all the problem.
Yeah, because I think a lot of some of the anger that I put on other people now, and going, they're angry the way that they've treated me, I'm angry at them now, I'm angry.
But do you
and then I
ever
think,
ask about the way you treat them?
yeah, and I'm also thinking as well that I also think it's anger at myself that I feel that I've been allowed to be tricked again, which I think comes back that I don't put anger on him who raped me when I was little, but I think it's, like you said, there will have been grooming there and this, that, and that I've been tricked again. I've fallen for it. I thought somebody were nice, as in the doctors. I thought they were going to help me. They've not again, they've hurt me again, and I'm angry at myself for letting my guard down. I don't know if there's that element of it as well. So there's so much to think about.
Then you have to ask yourself the question then, who is angry? When you say, I'm angry at myself, then who is I? And who is I angry at? Who is the self? There's only one of you in there. So we have this, like, I call it the schizophrenic voice in the head, yeah? The internal dialogue, whatever it wants to be labelled as, there's a chattering voice in your head. The brain's a recording machine. It's recording the events of your life, and it's just playing them back to you. Because, and you can catch that recording, because say like you saw somebody and they said something and you didn't say what you'd prefer to say, and you go home and then it's been rehearsed in your head and it plays it over and over again, doesn't it? They say, oh, I should have said that, and then you start to do it. You start to go back into your little movie. So it's like watching in here. It's like watching a TV thing play out. Yeah, so you've got the TV reel. So imagine it's like this. When you, years ago in the pictures, you'd have a projector, and like you're not allowed to look at the man in the box. You've got to look at the screen. Yeah, that's exactly the same for us. You're not allowed to look at this in the box. You've got to look at the screen. The screen is more important than this. It's like, well, only when I go in here can I change out there. I can't change out there, because it has to start in here. In here is where it starts, and out there is like candle wax. There it's produced in liquid, and out there, just so to speak, then it becomes solidified and it becomes matter. And I say one of the reasons why it's called matter is because that seems to matter a lot more than looking inside here, even though it starts here first. So it doesn't really make sense, do you see what I mean? But then you've got to ask yourself, who is the one chattering my voice? My brain's just a recording machine. I don't deem this recording machine as intelligence. I do not deem reading books and reading what somebody else has written as intelligence, because your brain's a recording machine, so it's just record. It's like saying a recording machine is intelligence. I have remembered things that I have learned along the way. Does that? I mean, you everybody in that sense, everybody must get. We could all get PhDs. You could get a PhD for hating yourself because you remembered how to do it. You do it excellently. You hate yourself. You do things to hate yourself. You think about hating yourself. You act on hating yourself. You do an absolutely fantastic job at telling your story from your recording machine. It doesn't make sense that you think that ovary is intelligence when you get a certificate. It's just made up stuff. What have we all done? We've memorized stuff out of a book that somebody else has written, but we haven't found out really for ourselves. How can you say that something's true if you do research and you say, well, that's true? How many people did you research? 200? That's not the 8 billion on the planet then. And I don't know if there's 8 billion because I haven't counted them. So I'm just repeating something. I don't know. I'm not saying I believe that, but I'm saying, well, let's put out there, everybody hears it. So I'm going to say 8 billion people. How can something be true? And then it's like, so that to me is it's all made up. Science is made up of a bunch of figures that somebody puts out there, and it sounds really good. And then they make up words. We can make these words up, so it's not your your autonomic nervous system. And that, how does that sound? It sounds intelligent. It sounds like an intelligent person who made a word up. Anybody can make a word. People do. So it's just like that. It's like when you see how it is, and you say, we're just constantly making things up. We're not going anywhere. Oh, we're evolving. Why? Because you've made more words up. We're not. We're not evolving anywhere. It's like, and that goes back to the TV screen. So you're watching this film, and in this film, all your emotions are going. Somebody runs and they always fall over a log, and then it gets you riled up, and it's like, rah, rah, like this. And you're all riled up, and your body's there, and you want to move, and you want them to run, and it feels like, and then when you're running and everything else. But when you look at the TV, does the TV move? It stays exactly in the same spot, doesn't it, your TV? It doesn't run around the room. You don't have to chase it. You're just watching this movie play out, and you're exactly in the same spot. And that's the same for all of us. The insanity is we're playing this movie out in our heads. We're telling lies. We're making things up as we go along. We're making that much up. We're going so far away from our humanness. Whether somebody thinks the world is round or flat, I don't know. We're not going anywhere. Just like the TV. Imagine how hilarious it must be if you were up there looking down, just seeing everybody run round a ball, and the think they're going somewhere, and they're just going to do this, run round a ball, yeah, and then the light's over, and they're running round the ball because somebody told them to, purely because is that intelligence to you? Is it intelligence? You have to work hard for a living. You have to work for somebody else. Eat this food. Do these ridiculous dances when your stomach hurts. In that insanity, wouldn't you say that it's insanity? It's like normalizing taking medication. Wouldn't you say that's insanity? That we normalize eating chemicals. So you have to ask yourself that where is the hell? Where is it if it's made up? Where is it if you say that come here to get healthy, but you don't, you can't get healthy without that and that. But I'm human. So if you want to make a human healthy, wouldn't you study a human? Wouldn't you not divide them up into 42 parts? And you've got to question what we're doing, all of us. Yeah, not anyone particular, all of us are doing, all of us are doing this, all of us are colluding with that. You've got to look at the bigger picture and say, how have we got to the point where we're normalising the abnormal and dividing people up and saying you don't fit my narrative? Well, how do I know your narrative's human then? Or is it more for business?
And it's like one of the major things that I've learned from you is like reaching out is about reaching in.
Yes.
And that's been really enlightening and sort of key to my development, because it's always something I've always looked at the outside and blamed myself. But now I'm learning to reach in and look at who I am and how I was created and how I respond
And
to
it's
things.
looking beyond then the saying that I'm angry with me, then who's the I, who's the me, and who's the one that knows that you're angry with them? Do you see what I mean? So you've got to ask yourself those questions. Who's the one? Go in there and find the angry one. Go in there and find the one that you're angry at. And go in there and find the one that knows both of those. So there has to be something interesting. We have to be interested then within ourselves. Because the experiment of, all I know, majority of people, which is more than 200, are looking outside for external happiness. Looking out there to put things in. So far, it hasn't worked because my own things that I've seen with my own eyes growing up is that people are getting sicker, not getting weller, and they're putting more things in. So to me, it's like, well, when you look at nature's brilliant. It's always green, always green. I've never seen a grey bird. When you look and you think, the animals know what to eat. They're not eating chemicals unless we're feeding them to, but they know what to eat. So do you see what I mean? So it's that the nature knows what to do, and yet we need to be told what to eat. In fact, we'll eat anything. You could put anything. You might as well just get a few bricks, and people would eat it if you put it in a nice wrapping. They'll eat anything because if you eat chemicals, you'll eat anything. But we've been programmed to it because we're programmed that if we don't, this will happen, and then we make it happen, even though we don't want it. What would you like to end?
So much to think about and so much to learn from. And when I think, oh, I've got this bit sorted, having a conversation, it's like, oh, it reminds me of this, and it reminds me. But yeah, I do. In summing up, thinking that we were talking about anger, I do displace anger onto other people, but now sometimes I do put it in the right direction. Sometimes I put it on me because it's easier than punishing myself than confronting somebody else. Sometimes I understand it and sometimes I don't. I think it's one of those things that I've got a lot of work and things to think about.
Because it's quite a subject anger, isn't it, of where anger comes from, but anger comes from pain.
And it's something that we just want to shut down, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think it's about doing the opposite of what we want to do and not talk about it. It's one of them things we don't want to talk about, but it's very real. And I noticed it, like I said, in a lot of people who have been through my experience, as well as have been angry at or not angry at the people or person who hurt them, but it's the anger at those who have been in disguise and said that we're here to help but actually hurt them as well.
Yeah, because so I guess that's why ultimately what you're saying is that you felt because the perpetrator was a perpetrator, you could trust him to do what he was going to do rather than trust the people to do what they were going to do because they said they were caring, and all the label of caring, and then you've met somebody that isn't. And as well, it's looking at how come they stand out to you more than the people that are caring.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
I wonder that.
Maybe I need to think about that and look at the people who have been so valuable in my life and so compassionate and helpful.
Yeah, because equally they're the surprises that you've had when you spoke about that you've been surprised that, this doctor or this nurse was that understanding or that caring. That there's something about that almost goes into the shadows when anger comes out.
Yeah.
But keeping that, do you keep it to keep yourself safe?
I was just thinking that I'm used to feeling negative, bad, horrible feelings. I get unnerved when positive or understanding is given to me. I think I'm ready. I think, is this going to be one of the times where I'm going to have the rug pulled from under me?
Because you said, didn't
So
you,
I
that you
don't.
don't, I fell for it again, so you don't want to fall for it again.
I don't. I think that's probably why I don't hold on to those things.
Yes.
Because I'm too busy waiting for the time where I'm going to be tricked again.
You're going to feel cheated, or you're going to feel.
But I think, I think that's me. My work to think about those people who have been really fundamental and helpful towards me.
Because, like you said, that there might be people similar to you that not everybody. People, people are nice. Some are anyway. But there are some that have been hurt and are, wounded healers in caring professions as well, like you, that says that happened, and I want somebody to receive something that I didn't receive. And it sounds like that's what you did. From what you said. Okay. Shall we end there?
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.